Now join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. That's about all I got. It's usually right about now something like pops into my head to talk about, and there's nothing. I don't know what to sorry to disappoint you all. I hope you weren't like hoping for some like great thing. Who here has heard me give my like sock example story? Like how anyone here attached to stuff? That one. You've heard that one, right? Okay. So many of you have not. So any of you have a difficulty with attachment to stuff, people, places, things, views, stories, ideas, right? So the Buddhist teaching on non-attachment helps us understand that we constantly crave and desire things, people, stories, past experiences, whatever it may be. There's a pretty deep underlying craving and desire for things around us. And the Buddha taught very clearly that it is this craving, in fact, that causes suffering. It's not so much the thing or the person or the place itself, but it's that like just constant craving for something. And then when you get it, how satisfied are you? Who here has an iPhone? That was a lot easier than asking who heard the sock story, right? Your hand went up, right? Yeah. What iPhone do you have? Oh, she knew. That's really easy because there's always a chance that I ask somebody what iPhone they have and they're like an iPhone 4 and then my example is ruined, you know? iPhone 12 Pro Max. I didn't even know she ratted you out, man. Oh, she has it. Oh, okay. Well, okay, good enough. I thought she was ratting you out. What do you have? Only a 10? How dare you have only a 10? She's got a 12 Pro Max. So, did you have one before your 10 and before your 12 Pro Max? Did it not work anymore? Okay. Yours did? You're much easier in this example to focus on. So yours worked fine, but they came out with the 12 Pro Max, and you're like, I have to get it. You have to get it. They gave you a bunch of money off. You have to get it. And in some window between the next 12 and 24 months, you know what's going to happen? You already know it, right? What's going to happen? They're going to come out with a new one. And you're just going to crave and desire that one, right? This is our whole life, is that there's constantly more that we want, when in reality, what we already have is fine. In most cases, a lot of cases, many cases. So again, this is the Buddhist teachings on non-attachment. So one of my favorite, I guess, lessons, challenges, stories, examples of coming through non-attachment. And this is really hard, things like phones or clothes, stuff like that. It's pretty basic. But there's people that we attach to when we lose loved ones, we lose animals, things that are really, really important to us. Not that an iPhone's not important, and I'm not making fun of you. I got mine right here, And so the practice of non-attachment is like, okay, well, how do we deal with practicing non-attachment? And so I have a whole list of just really silly, ridiculous ways. And one of them has to do with socks. Okay? How many of you wear socks? And when you wear socks, thank you, Molly, for demonstrating the socks, right? And when you wear socks, do you ever just put on ones that don't match? Never. Would you ever? No. Oh, perfect. You're the first victim, right? Here's a challenge for you. Are you up for it? You started to say no. So tomorrow, okay, you're going to go into your sock drawer. So do you roll your socks together, or are they like loosely in there?
Oh, together.
Oh, so you're pretty OCD, like yeah, okay. Even playing field, right? I get it. I'm coming from experience of the misery of OCD. And I shouldn't make light of it. It's actually very serious, can be, but it also can be very difficult. And so tomorrow, here's your challenge. You're going to go into your sock drawer, and you're going to you can do this 2 ways. Do it this way tonight. When you get home tonight, go into your sock drawer and unroll all of them and mix them all up. Tomorrow, when you start your day and you go to put on your socks, just grab 2 socks without looking. If you end up grabbing the same ones, do it again until you get 2 different ones. Put on those socks and wear them all day. Ideally, not with pants or jeans that cover down to your toes, right? And I want you to see what it's like to go through your day with socks on that don't match. How does that sound?
I'm twitching a little.
You're what?
I'm twitching a little bit.
It's scary, right?
Yeah.
It is scary. And it's the silliest thing that we have been raised and conditioned to wear, and you're not the only one. I've been using this example for 10 years, that idea of actually wearing socks that potentially don't match is scary. If you think about it, how crazy is that? That the things that are going to go on our feet to keep our feet warm, we are so conditioned to think that they must be the same. And the simple idea of potentially changing that completely shatters our entire concept of the way we live our lives. And so this practice, this example, has nothing to do with socks. But even just in this instance of introducing it, you have this potentially, maybe I just saw it on your face, but this visceral reaction that's I can't do that. That would be really hard. And for many people, that's really hard. This shows us how attached we are to things that in most cases are relatively meaningless. So then think about how attached we are to things that actually mean something. And this is where practice becomes, really an opportunity to ask ourselves wow, I'm afraid of losing loved ones. I'm afraid of, major life changes. I'm afraid of losing jobs or career, relationships, money. I'm afraid of losing all these things. And so a lot of people come into Buddhist practice to work on being okay with change and impermanence. And I introduce wearing different socks. And people are no, I can't do that. So try it. Will you report back? Yeah.
I have, we should talk about on the topic of getting fixated on a view and having the wrong view. How do you step back and have the right view? I think most of the time it's easy to disattach from things, from objects, because you can see it physically leaving you and being okay with it. but to disattach from a perception or a view that you want to have on what's going on the happening, and you want to be wronged. You still want to be wronged because we're so addicted to being victimized or feeling sorry for ourselves in the moment. How can you take the stronger approach and step out of that view, even when the emotions are strong in that moment?
When you, just to clarify, when you say step out of that view, I'm going to use my words here, but are you saying step out of the view that you have that you're attached to?
Yeah, I feel like so strongly sometimes we can be addicted to certain emotions
Oh, yeah.
that are not helping see the truth.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I just wanted to make that last part. I just want to make sure that what you're asking is trying to understand how you can learn to not attach to your own views.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Not easily. So I'll share this. We'll do meditation, and then we'll come back to that because that'll be a great kind of topic for the evening. But Thich Nhat Hanh says that nirvana, freedom from suffering, right? The ending of suffering, liberation, everything that most people come to meditation and Buddhist stuff for is freedom from views. So if Thich Nhat Hanh says that freedom from views is the way to awaken, what that tells me is it's really difficult, right? So the question of how is not a simple answer, but it starts with silly things like wearing different socks. It really does, because that is a view. So I could see, and obviously nobody else could see as you're asking the question, but I could see and feel and hear a lot of emotion just in your question. Is that fair? Because whatever it is, and I don't want the less I know always the better, but whatever it is really heavy on you right now. And it's a real, for lack of better words, maybe burden. And it's heavy. And your question to me, what I hear is really wanting to learn, how do I not attach to this situation? And what I'm telling you is, whatever the situation is, based on your expressions, it's heavy. Socks, being different, opposite of heavy. You understand? So the only way you're ever going to learn to not attach to your view is to start by shattering the views we have of thinking that what socks we wear matter. These are baby steps, right? Another example I'll give is, and then we'll sit, is when you go out to eat, right? You go to a restaurant, you sit down. What happens typically when you sit down at a restaurant? The menu. You spend 3, 5, 7 minutes looking at the menu, telling them what you want. I want this, hold this, extra this, on the side this. I want it cooked this way. There's a whole little game we play with what's on the menu. And then when it shows up, then what do you do? Other than eat. What happens as we start to eat? We critique it. I like it, I don't like it. It's undercooked, it's overcooked, it's too this, it's too that, right? All of these things, we've just set up a view of what we wanted, and then when we get it and we start to eat, we're stuck to our view of how we want it to be. So along with the sock practice, next time you go to a restaurant, sit down, ask the person who's taking your order, if you have, dietary restrictions, if you're vegetarian, if you're gluten-free, whatever it might be, if you have whatever your budget is, just say, look, please bring me something on the menu that's vegetarian, gluten-free, no nuts, that's under $12. And they're going to look at you like you're kind of weird. And then you say, yes, please, just anything under $12, and here's, my health diet restrictions. And then when it shows up, you know what you're going to do? Just eat. And you know what you're going to try not to do? Anyone here like to complain? I'm sure nobody in this room complains about anything ever. But just in case, this is the practice of gratitude and appreciation for the ability to have $12 in your pocket, to be able to go to a restaurant, and to be able to eat food. Is that not enough? Our views that we have told ourselves our whole life is no, that's not enough. It has to be what I want, when I want, where I want it, how I want it. Our views are heavily tied to our entire life's experiences. So what you're asking is very difficult to do, but what I'm suggesting is that we start to learn to not attach to the simple things that really don't mean much. Because if we're tied to feeling that we're entitled to our food being prepared a certain way, and to pay X amount of dollars for it, and that it has to be this or has to be that, and we're stuck on thinking that our socks have to match our shoes, then we are never going to not attach to things that actually matter. I wish I could be like, yeah, here, read page 72 and you'll be good. This practice doesn't work that way. If you're brand new to Buddhism, this practice is like, why do I think what I think? Why do I say what I say? And why do I do what I do? That's what this practice is. And we're around non-attachment. It's understanding, why am I so attached? And you're not alone. We're all attached. We're attached because we've been conditioned our entire lives. Right? What's the movie? The
Matrix.
No, but that's a great example too. Adam Sandler with the kid. Come on, Chaz, help me out.
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy, thank you very much. So you know the movie, right? What does he tell the kid to go do when he gets dressed? You remember what he gets dressed as? Scuba Steve. And that kid has no attachment to what his shoes are supposed to look like. He puts on flipper things, whatever they're called, and a scuba mask to go to school. And he's perfectly happy. That childlike nature, that freedom of just expression and choosing gets completely destroyed as we age. Because we then become stuck, and that's where the matrix comes in. We then become stuck in the matrix of the entire world telling us what we should look like, what we should wear, what we should eat, how we should act, who we should be with. Everything is about what's right and wrong. So,
No expectation.
no expectations. And the last thing I'll say before we sit, I usually don't talk this much before we start meditation, but what usually all of this comes down to is, why do we spend so much time focused on the clothes we wear? Why? What are we wanting from that? Validation? What other people think. Right? So much of our actions throughout our day are with the mindset of, what is someone else going to think about me? And I'm not saying these things are wrong or bad, but you have to begin to recognize that, wow, I've really spent most of my life putting clothes on and choosing what to wear because I want to look a certain way for other people. You know? So, don't need to wear a scuba mask tomorrow, but try different socks. All right. So with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. There's a couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind won't shut off. It won't stop racing. You won't think nothing. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. This practice is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture. You just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often help. Slide into the front third. Bench or chair. Also just trying to push the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. It doesn't make you a bad meditator. I will guide us as we begin. And we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention and focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath There's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing, and once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move, the most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from, or what you believe in, or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen, and you react. more stuff happens, more reactions. That's our entire life. Things happening and us reacting. Every moment of our life, that's it. And this practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you respond to the last 20 minutes is different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our days. So much of our lives, things don't go how we want them to. And we respond in not so pleasant ways. So much of our lives, things go exactly how we want them to. And maybe we respond appropriately. But either way, we spend so much time back and forth between this huge range of emotions, of expectations, of attachments, of cravings, of desires. So much of our time is spent wrapped up in worries about future, stress, anxiety, fears. So much of our time is spent pondering the past, angry, sad, depressed. So this practice is learning to be present. This is the practice of non-attachment. To be present with life as it exists. This is the Buddhist teaching on impermanence. Of understanding that every situation, no matter how severe or how simple it might be, will change, will fade, will go away. Every concern we have in our lives right now, at some point, will pass. Either our view or the situation. But because we often spend so much time thinking that each moment, each experience is never going to change, or we experience something and then we create a story of what the next 4 years are going to be like just based on one moment. And we're not even experiencing that moment. Learning to find appreciation and gratitude for everything as it arises is a beautiful practice, and one that's very difficult. The practice of non-attachment is having endless, absolute love for each moment, and each person, and each experience. And the practice of impermanence and daily life is understanding that everything changes. But our mind gets stuck. And it fixates on a story. And that story has a beginning and a middle and an end. And we want our stories to work out how we tell ourselves they're going to work out. And when they don't, we don't like that. I say this a lot, but sometimes your story works out better than you even anticipated. But either way, this practice of the Buddhist teachings is learning to let go and abandon that story that you're telling yourself about how things can be, should be, hope to be. And learning to let go of very often the one thing that we love to hold on to so tightly, which is control. Non-attachment is abandoning control. And that's very scary. Because we want to be in control of things. But even that idea of control is a complete illusion. You're just telling yourself you're in control. Chogyam Trungpa is a great Buddhist teacher. I think was really profound in the way he introduced Buddhist teachings and kind of a Western audience. Did a lot of stuff he shouldn't have done also. But his teachings are, I think, really brilliant. And he says Buddhist practice is like being on a very tall building. And when you jump, it's kind of scary. And that's the bad news. And the good news is that there's no ground. And he referred to this as groundlessness. So you're not attached to anything or anyone or any story. And that I don't want to confuse with this idea that you don't care, because it's absolutely the opposite of that. It's not caring, it's actually loving each moment and each situation and each person for how they are on their own path, on their own journey. And very often when it comes to attachments with regards to people, not always, but often it means we're struggling with accepting or embracing the fact that that person, no matter how much we may know or love them, is on their own journey. And that own journey might not align with how we want it to go. But their journey is not ours. It's theirs. So, with that, I'll pause and just open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with at this moment. And to our millions of YouTube followers, welcome. Thanks for being here. If you have questions, feel free to type them in. So there's I'll just respond to the question here from Lisa, who I know, and for those who, just to give some context, lost her husband recently. He battled for many years, and somewhat recently he passed. So her question is, "Hi Jeff, as I grieve for my dear Jeff," that was her husband's name, "can you tell me where he is now, what he is now, and is he at peace?" So we'll start with a gentle discussion tonight around this topic of what happens when we die. For me, I think that well, let me just directly say some things. I cannot tell you where he is now. I cannot tell you what he is now, and I cannot tell you if he's at peace. I wish I could answer all three of those questions, but I can't tell you that. The Buddha couldn't tell you that. The Buddha was just some dude, wasn't a god. So nobody can tell you where he is, what he is, or is he at peace. But what I can tell you from what I've learned from this path and this practice is that the Buddha taught very clearly that we are an endless continuation of consciousness, and that we come together for a period of time. That time is very brief in the grand scheme of things. We might think it's, however many years or short time or long time. But, even 100 years is very brief in this big, crazy universe we're in. To us, in this kind of human realm of being alive and putting years on it, 100 years sounds like a long time. But the Buddha taught that we have this consciousness, and it comes together in a physical form for a period of time, and then the physical form falls apart, stops working, as will with every one of us in this room. Now, the Buddha didn't create this, he didn't invent this This was the view in India 2,500 years ago where he was raised, when he was raised. And this is the Hindu teachings and practice. They all believed in a rebirth, continuation of consciousness, life after life, however you want to phrase it. Different traditions refer to it differently. But it was a continuation. If you told somebody back then that you had one life and then you're going to heaven or hell, they would have thought you were crazy. But here we are in San Diego in the year 2022, right? 2022? That sounded weird for some reason in my head. And we're all focused on like, I have this life and that's it. That would have been crazy back then, right? We would have been crazy ones that thought that this one life was it. So the challenge, Lisa, and this is really difficult for all people to recognize, is that this teaching, this practice is understanding that Jeff, as you know him and as you knew him your entire life together, was a continuation from past consciousness. To me, the deepest understanding of this practice is to recognize that we tend to look at the continuation of consciousness from just now. That I am Jeff, and this is it. And what's next? But there was a great monk in Taiwan who taught life and death studies, and he said the mistake we make is that we think that it's a series of life after life after life. And he said it's just one long, endless continuation that gets broken up by physical form. The practice of, or the question of, is he at peace, is really deeply to explore, not just in your situation, but for all of us, that can we live at peace while we're alive? There's a great teaching that says if you want to rest in peace, if you want to die peacefully, you must live peacefully. So a lot of the questions of, is he at peace now, is how was he when he passed? And this is deep stuff, but you've known me long enough and well enough, even though I'm staring at you through the little monitor right here, through the little camera, I can still see you sitting out here. I can see you. I can see Jeff and the years I've sat with you all, and you know that if you ask me a question, I'm just going to give you what I know. And what I know is the answer to that question is, what was he like when he passed? What was his mind like when he passed? Was he at peace? Emotionally, spiritually, at peace? That's the real question. And that's hard sometimes for us to embrace and accept. The last comment on this I'll make is that there's all these kind of technical answers around life and death and things like that. But I think one of the most beautiful teachings, and I'm not going to try to quote Rumi, but there's a beautiful Rumi quote about this as well, where even looking within the Buddhist teachings, and Thich Nhat Hanh refers to it as no birth, no death. That we are alive always in our mind. So the question of where did he go? Where is he now? He's right there. He's in your mind. He's in your heart. He's sitting here. You are the one that keep him. From your thoughts, your memories, your heart, your love and care for him. Physical bodies, physical form comes and goes, always. There's a school of Buddhism called Yogacara, mind-only school. And it's beyond physical form, it's consciousness. So, yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah, so Lisa said, thank you, Jeff. My Jeff endured his illness with patience. He died peacefully and with no fear. He was a blessing. So, there you go. To live peacefully is to die peacefully. To die peacefully is to live peacefully. And for all of us sitting here, learn to live peacefully now. Other questions, thoughts?
I have like a two-part question. Why is it that some of us appear to suffer more than others mentally? For example, so it appears sometimes that I know in my case, ever since I was very young, mental health has been something that I've experienced. And it seems as though, on other people's journeys, they don't experience it till later on in life, or even sometimes not at all, so it appears. And off the back of that, do you think that physical pain is intrinsically tied to mental pain? In the case of I've had chronic pain for a long time, off the back of an injury, and even though it appears it should have gone away, it hasn't. And mental health is something that I still deal with.
Sure.
So I'm just curious if you think that they are linked.
Yeah. So just to rephrase for those who couldn't hear the question, joining us, and just also so I'm on the same page, and I'll kind of close with this topic. The first part of your question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but why is it that you suffered a lot from an early age, and why is it that some people tend to suffer mentally more so than others? Is that the first part of your question?
Yeah, and it could even be, I know we all have different experiences, but maybe, I'm sure there's been studies where there's been two twins who've experienced same upbringing, one of them appears more than the others suffer.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and then the second part of the question is around the connection between physical pain and mental emotional pain with chronic pain. So there's a couple ways to look at the first thing. One is let me just start here, not to discount what you said or discredit what you said, but for me, I always caution our potential attempt, knowledge, or understanding of what we deem other people's suffering to be. And again, I know this isn't the best place to start, but this is where I'm going to start. And understanding that our view of those that are suffering or not suffering is incredibly limited, right? There's an entire global planet of people out there. And we really don't know what people's suffering is. And what may seem extreme to some, or not extreme to some, I should say, to that individual is incredibly extreme. Now, I also say this without getting into too much here. I grew up super fortunate, super privileged, super spoiled, experienced, for the most part, relatively no suffering other than self-inflicted misery and depression and suicidal thoughts for so many years out of nowhere, just my head, right? I have every condition to not be that. And I've also spent the last 25 years working with, started in college with adolescent females, all who've been physically, sexually, emotionally abused. I've worked with trauma victims, I've spent 15 years working in prisons, worked with those who've murdered, worked with those who've raped, worked with victims. I've seen a lot. And every situation is unique. And I don't know that there's any answer as to why. But to some extent, the question is, how does each individual deal with their own suffering? That's really, to me, all that's relevant. I mean, technically, and this answer never usually satisfies anyone, but following up from what I just talked about with regards to a continuation of consciousness, and that consciousness can, being reborn, as we would refer to it as. They call it a Laya Vijnana storehouse consciousness. It's a collection of your karma. So at the time of birth, right, when physical body dies, consciousness leaves the body. In Tibetan Buddhism, they call it the Bardo stage. At some point during the next 49 days, physical body comes together, consciousness enters, and boom, you have life. So the very technical answer to that is, and again, going back to Lisa and Jeff's, as far as a rebirth situation, if someone dies very peacefully, that's what they're going to carry on. So you ever woke up and been in a really good mood? Once in a while, right? And sorry, you two are fun. This is great. And how long does that good mood last for? A little bit, yeah. A couple hours, maybe the whole day if you're lucky. Maybe 5 minutes. Give me something here, right? 5 minutes. All right. You ever woke up in a terrible mood? Today. And how long did that terrible mood last? It's now 8 o'clock. Did it last all day? Come on. You had to have some, huh? Pretty much. Nothing today was pleasant, enjoyable?
It definitely was, but there was that anxiety in the background the whole day.
The whole day. Okay. My point is, when we wake up and start our day, if we're in a pleasant mood, that will continue for a period of time before it changes. We woke up, we're in a miserable mood, that will continue for a period of time until it continues. Your question very specifically about why are some born with, in their lives, why do some have more or less trauma than others? It's past karma. That's it. That's not always fun and easy to hear it that way, but what were our past lives like? That leads to the future. Same way. That's kind of the technical Buddhist response to that. But from a practical standpoint, the concern is not so much to me why others are suffering or not suffering. The question is, why are you suffering? That's all that matters. And the Buddha taught very clearly, all of us suffer because we're greedy. We want more. Nothing we have is enough. We suffer because we're angry. We don't like the way things are. We want people to be different. We want different experiences to have happened. We're upset at the way the world works. This is not about being rightfully upset or not. It's just understanding that when we're angry, we're suffering. And the third one is we're ignorant. All the three poisons. We suffer because of greed, anger, ignorance. Ignorance is we're ignoring the truth. The truth is reality as it is, as opposed to our view of how we want things to be. You ever want more without realizing what you have is enough? You ever get angry? You ever think that your view of reality is right? Well, there you go. That's why you suffer, according to Buddhist teachings. And what the Buddha taught is you overcome greed with generosity. So tonight, tomorrow, spend all day giving. Give someone a hug. Give someone a smile. Give someone your ear to listen to. Give someone attention. Just give all day tomorrow. When you give, you come out of your sense of self. When you come out of your sense of self, you suffer less. Practice of anger. Just have compassion all day for yourself and others tomorrow. And spend all day tomorrow recognizing that maybe, just maybe, your views of the world are not correct. If you practice these three things, you will suffer less. Does that make sense? And the last part, and then we'll close here, is there's a very, and I'm not a doctor, but there's a very strong correlation and connection with physical pain coming from mental, emotional pain. Absolutely. Stress, anxiety, we feel in our body. Yes. The more you take care of your mind and your heart, hopefully physically we'll feel better. But some people just have chronic pain. And all the meditation in the world doesn't necessarily fix it. But being aware of physical pain that we live with is important, because then you can hopefully seek and address and get help for physical pain that you're carrying. But I am by no means a medical professional and tend to stay clear away from all of that, other than knowing that we do carry a lot of stuff on our shoulders that comes from our heart and our head. So generosity, compassion, wisdom, practice that tomorrow. See how your day goes. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. We'll do a transfer of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to the 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, their family and friends who suffer at this time, and to all of those in Ukraine and surrounding areas that suffer, and all in this room that suffer at this time. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So good to see you all. Thanks for being here. Just a quick announcement. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers. We're just practitioners. So we do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So just about every night, different practices going on. It's good to see you all here. Day of Silence is back, so that'll start in June. You do have to RSVP on the website, but it's 4 hours, 8 to noon of silence. So 20 minutes of silence is absolute torture. Then I strongly suggest you sit with yourself for 4 hours. You're already saying no. So give it a shot. Other than that, thanks all for being here. Be safe, be well. Good luck with the socks and the food ordering. And the iPhone 13.
Thank you.
Thank you.